Okay, I think we're live now. So before we get started with, excuse me, talking about all the stuff that has happened, I'm just going to add a couple of links before we get into this. So that being said, I do apologize for that. And can you move, please? Can you move? I do apologize if my cat does get in the way of this recording. Please don't knock over the microphone. I would not. No, don't be doing that. Don't be doing that. Yes, I am on. I just gotta post this stuff right here. Yes. Getting messages from a couple of people asking me if I'm on yet. Yes, I am. What I'm just gonna go ahead and start doing right now is putting the links to the podcast. And can you not do that, please? Again, I do apologize for this. My cat has decided to join us on this live stream, so just trying to make sure that he's not knocking stuff over. He was rubbing my mic a couple minutes ago, so let's see. Where do we want to go here? We obviously have a lot to get to within this program, so podcast. Spotify. Where's our Spotify page? Okay, racing rundown, horse racing. I'm having trouble finding all this stuff. I'm not finding anything that I wanted to find. No, I can't move him. Can you get out of the shot though? If you're gonna be in here, sit down, please. All right. I think we're all supposed to go with that. Although that's not helpful that you're sitting on my phone. All right, just give me another couple of minutes and we'll get into talking about all the stuff from the races today. I'd have to go do this on my iPad. Never mind. So while I'm still getting all this stuff set up, be sure we're going to talk about everything today. Unfortunately, my co-host Eric is not going to be here with us tonight, but Eric did give me a whole list of his points from the past time frame of the past couple of days of the stakes. So we'll hit on all that. Obviously, you can ask me questions about anything. Eclipse Awards were the past week, or we're on Thursday, so you can ask me about Eclipse Awards, what I think about that, as well as we're going to talk about the two races in the Pegasus and the undercards, stuff that happened there. So just hold on another minute or so. There we go. Naturally, I find it as soon as I go on here and I can't get it on my computer or whatever. I hate the internet sometimes. So yeah, like I said, be sure to bring any questions that you have about anything. Hey, how's it going? Be sure to bring in any questions that you have about anything, be it the Eclipse Awards, be it today. Obviously, we're going to get to in a couple of minutes talking about that big win by Mucho Gusto a couple hours ago in the Pegasus World Cup. Actually, not a couple hours ago. About an hour. When was the race? No, the race is at 5. So, yeah, 2 hours ago. Right now, what the hell? Why can I not see this? This is annoying me. That I'm not able to see where my YouTube channel is. What I'm trying to do right now is put in the links for the podcast. So if you're are new to the show or just have not been able to find the actual, because YouTube is not the only thing we do. We do a weekly podcast on iTunes that usually does not make it to YouTube. I've said I'm going to try to be better about that, but I cannot make any guarantees. So we're going to try to be better about getting those stuff on on a YouTube. We'll get to that in a minute. Don't worry. Mr. Freeze is going to get big props from me in a second. I just want to get all this stuff in here. So if you're not have not started viewing the podcast on the other platforms, be sure to go do that, because definitely helps out the show and makes it so that you don't miss the other stuff that we do that may not necessarily be on YouTube, because YouTube is our most popular platform. But yes, you actually can do that. I will put in the link. I just recently set that up, so you can go and get that through Google Play. I'll put that link in there as well. Where is my iHeartRadio? The 4 best formats to get it are iTunes, or actually in order is iTunes, or not iTunes, Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, and Google Play. I don't really have any issue or preference on which iHeartRadio or Google Play is better. But the one thing about iTunes is that if you're not a subscriber, iTunes makes it so that you tend to miss the notifications for a couple of days. So if you're a subscriber, you'll get the notifications when we put a new episode out. But for some reason, when it happens with non-subscribers or people who have not subscribed to the show, it won't show up for a couple of days. So just so you don't miss that stuff, subscribe, and you won't miss any of this stuff. I did unfortunately have an issue with can you get off the bed, please? I did have an issue with uploading the show this week. We did get our interview with Dale Romans out on the podcast platform, so you can go listen to that there. Why am I not able to find this on Google? This is frustrating me that I'm not able to find this right now. Resources. All right, I found it. Copy. Oh, hey, how's it going? Yeah, so I think that's about it. One more. I'll just throw in the Twitter right now. Down Racing on Twitter. And I do at some point, I did start making some posts back on Instagram for the Eclipse Awards. I didn't want to make too many. I don't want to make too many because I didn't want to overload the Instagram with posts about the Eclipse Awards. So we're going to get those in over the course of the next couple of days. I'll make posts about each of the divisions. And there we go. That is it for Twitter. I got to just send the link to someone who wants to have the link to the live show. And that should be it. So yeah, like I mentioned, bring your questions about the Eclipse Awards, bring your questions about the Pegasus. We got a lot to get to. There's other stuff besides just the Eclipse Awards and the Pegasus to talk about. Undercard stakes races. We'll preview a little bit about the Saudi Cup, and it's been a while, so if anyone wants to ask me about any of the Derby trail horses, be it any of Bob Baffert's horses or some of the other ones, that I'll answer like I usually do. I'll answer any questions. Hall of Fame is coming up. I know that's not on a lot of people's radar, but it is on mine because we will be there for the Hall of Fame this year. The podcast will be, so that is something that's on my awards. Or that's something that's on my radar. Yeah, the one thing about the Eclipse Awards are the thing that was surprising about the Eclipse Awards was not who got the awards, because who got the awards, we pretty much knew what was happening, what was going to happen with that. But the thing that was surprising about that was the fact that not very many of the Eclipse Award categories were close. Like, for example, one that I thought, and with talking with Jay Pribman, both on and off the record, the indication that I was getting for the female turf Eclipse Award was that it was going to be nuts. Like it was going to be single-digit deciding vote, and it was not really close. Uni, the Breeders' Cup Mile winner, had 122 votes, I believe, and Got Stormy, who we all thought was going to get second place, only got 33 votes for that. Sister Charlie, who had the 4 Grade 1 wins this year, the Diana, the Beverly D, the Flower Bowl, the 3 Grade 1 wins. I added a Grade 1 that she didn't have, but she ended up getting more votes than Sister Charlie, which surprised me and many other people. Not necessarily going to say that she deserved to win it, but it was surprising that Uni didn't get as many votes as she did. And the other thing that I was surprised, the other thing that really the only thing that was upset me about the Eclipse Awards, at least that particular category, was the fact that Concrete Rose only got, I think, something like 3 to 6 votes for that. And Iridessa, the filly that came over from Europe and won the filly and mare turf, got more votes than her. I thought that Concrete Rose, for her wins in the Edgewood, the Belmont Oaks, and the Saratoga Oaks, deserved a lot more credit than she got. And, it's disappointing we didn't get to see a full season out of her, because then it would have made that Eclipse Award category very interesting. All that being said, there were a lot of good female turf runners this year. It was a very crowded division. The one division that was really a head scratcher was the male sprinter division. Sorry about that. My microphone. I just knocked my microphone over. The one division that was a real head scratcher was the male sprinter, and not for who won it. We pretty much expected Matoli to win it. Like the indication that I was getting from that was that it was not going to be very close, and it was not. Matoli won by over 240 votes. But the thing that was really Matoli won by 235 votes, and there were only 6 other votes cast for that award for any horse. And the horse that got the 5 other votes was Maximum Security, who we all know was not a sprinter at all this year. Excuse me for a moment. So we know that Maximum Security was not a sprinter. Now, not to say that Maximum Security wouldn't be a good sprinter, but the fact that he got 5 votes for the Eclipse Awards, that did not make any sense. Now, I could understand certain people making him an Eclipse, making him, or not making him, but giving him votes. But the thing that was really surprising to me, and really not surprising, was really, I thought the voters did a huge disservice to this. The people who, if you didn't vote for Matoli, which, if you're going to vote for the best, I'm not going to fault you for voting for the best horse, because, well, let's be completely honest, Matoli was the best horse. So if you vote for him in that, I'm not going to fault you. But really, to the 5 people who voted for Maximum Security, they did a disservice to American Pharaoh's not up for the Hall. American Pharaoh is not eligible this year. He will get in, but American Pharaoh's not eligible. Wise Dan will get in. That's the one horse. We'll get to that, I'll talk about that in a minute, but that's the one horse that's a sure slam dunk this year. Wise Dan will get in. I'll explain that in a minute. I just want to finish the point about Matoli and Maximum Security for that voting. The 5 people who voted for Matoli did a huge disservice to the other really good horse this year that didn't do very well in his first starts of the year, but his last 2, Imperial Hint won the Alfred Vanderbilt at 6 furlongs. He got a 121 buyer, set a track record there. And if it wasn't for Chancelot's performance in the Amsterdam the next day, hang on a second. If it wasn't for Chancelot's performance in the Amsterdam the next day, everyone would have been talking about that race, the Alfred Vanderbilt, where Imperial Hint ran 6 furlongs in track record time, got a 124 buyer, got a 121. Chancelot had a 124 buyer. So I mixed those numbers up. But then Imperial Hint ran in the Vosburg, ran a very, very tough race against Firenze Fire, who almost beat him. And then he was unfortunately scratched prior to the Breeders' Cup. And a lot of people have said that that was not the most popular decision by the vets. So, if you weren't going to vote for Matoli and you voted for maximum security, that doesn't make a lot of sense there. But I'll get back to your point. It's 5 years. The Hall of Fame is 5 years after their final racing year. So Wisedan's last race was in 2014. So you have to be retired for 5 full years before you're eligible for the Hall of Fame. And Wisedan, his last race being in 2014, means that 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19. So now that's 5 years. 2020 is 6 years since his last race. So basically it's 6 years since their last race. So he's up for it, but American Pharoah, his last race was in 2015. So 6 years from 2015 would be 2021. So it's really, they have to be retired for 5 years, but it's 6 years between their last race and when they can be voted into the Hall of Fame. So some of the other horses that are on the docket for the Hall of Fame this year, not necessarily saying they're going to get in, but they're eligible for it. Groupie Doll, 2-time Breeders' Cup filly and mare sprint winner. She is up for the first time. Her last race was also in 2014. She didn't run very well in 2014, but she ran, in addition to her 2 wins in the Breeders' Cup filly and mare sprint, she was also second by a nose in the Cigar Mile handicap behind Stay Thirsty. And she, like I said, second by a very short nose. And then also she won the Presque Isle Downs Master Stakes. That was grade 2, 2014, 2-time Breeders' Cup winner. Royal Delta got in as a 2-time Breeders' Cup winner last year. Now, Royal Delta was significantly more accomplished in her career than Groupie Doll was. Not to say that Groupie Doll's not a very nice horse, and she will be a Hall of Famer at some point, but maybe not first off the ballot. Wisedan is the only one that I can think of that is going to get in right away off the ballot. And then you're also going to have horses returning from next year. Most likely some names like Rags to Riches, Have Rated Grace, Blind Luck, horses that have been on the ballot already. Throw in Gio Ponte as well. Horses that have been on the ballot thus far and have not gotten in. But to that point, the only one that you can be certain about is Wisedan. But there are several other horses. Game On Dude is also going to be eligible. He'll probably be on the ballot. Lava Man got in with very similar credential. Now, Lava Man didn't get in first try, but Lava Man, shout out Doug O'Neill. Lava Man was a horse that had a reputation of not really doing much outside of California, and Game On Dude is a similar story. So I could see Game On Dude. I will tell you, Game On Dude will most likely be on the ballot. Whether or not he gets in is not quite sure whether or not he'll get in, but lots of grade 1 wins, lots of success in California, not as much success outside of California, but Lava Man got in. So that's why, for any people who are big Game On Dude fans, I don't think it's going to be this year, but Game On Dude definitely has a better record than Lava Man, at least in grade 1 races. He ran better in any Breeders' Cup than Lava Man did, but to say that Game On Dude is not going to get into the Hall of Fame at some point, that I don't think that's correct. He'll get in, like Lava Man was able to get in, and Game On Dude will get in. I don't think he's a first time out horse, but 16 wins in 34 career starts, 7 seconds and a third. So that's the record you're looking at for for Game On Dude. I'll get you Lava Man's record in just a second. But yeah, so Lava Man, very similar. I can't, while the page is loading, I don't know specifically off the top of my head. And Equibase is crashing. That's great. That's great that Equibase is crashing. But Lava Man and Game On Dude are very similar stories. Yes, actually, Mucho Gusto was, I don't know exactly when the purchase was made, but Mucho Gusto was purchased by a member of the Saudi royal family. So he is under new ownership. the reason you saw the new silks is because he does have a new owner, member of the Saudi royal family, and he is going to the Saudi Cup yet. Jay Pridman informed us of that a couple hours ago after he spoke with Bob Baffert. And Lava Man's record was 7. See, he had 17 wins in 47 starts. So very similar record for those two horses. That's the end of the Hall of Fame discussion right now. But yeah, so you notice Mucho Gusto had different silks. That's not a coincidence. Mucho Gusto is under new ownership. Yeah, the Charlestown Classic, that is worth bringing up. That Game On Dude couldn't do it. It wasn't like Game On Dude couldn't do anything outside of California. He was also, it's also worth mentioning, he was second in a Breeders' Cup Classic that Mike Smith had to ride, one of, if not the race or the Breeders' Cup of his life, in order to beat him. So Game On Dude should be a Hall of Famer. Hall of Fame discussion has been going on this week. Not a baseball show, but Baseball Hall of Fame was this week. So I'm kind of on a Hall of Fame high. I'm excited for that. That's why I want to talk about it. But Game On Dude will be a Hall of Famer. It's just a matter of, I don't think he's a first-timer. Lava Man wasn't a first-timer. But Lava Man did get in. Doug O'Neill, not that he was surprised that Lava Man got in, but didn't have the strongest confidence that he would get in as quickly as he did. Game On Dude should get in similarly. That's my whole opinion on this. Now, putting aside all the Hall of Fame discussion, if you have questions about that, we'll get to it later, but I do want to get to the stakes races from this past weekend. Also, before we get into that, weird thing to mention is New Zealand Hall of Fame. Like, as in the New Zealand Hall of Fame is coming up. My cat probably does want to be my co-host. But he's not here right now at the moment. It only happens every year. Yeah, it happens. It happens every year here. Now, Jay Pridman is one of the people who is the nominator. So I didn't make Jay tell us who he voted for the Eclipse Awards. I'm not going to make Jay go too much in depth on how the Hall of Fame stuff is going to work out. But when he's back on the show in April for the Kentucky Derby, that will be after the elections have come out. Most likely, I'm going to try to schedule it so that he comes on after the elections come out so we can talk about that. Once the nominees are found, which he did tell me, it's going to be around mid-February-ish. So we're going to start doing the racing Case for Racing Immortality series that we did last year. Eric and I will cover, we'll figure out what horses, who is going to cover what horses. I'm not going to do repeat shows. Only reason I would do that is if Eric wants to interject an opinion about Rags to Riches or Blind Luck or any of the horses that we covered last year. But we'll definitely cover the new horses like Wise Dan. I will say he will get in. It's just super easy for 344 easy money. Before we get into talking about the Pegasus Turf, I do want to talk about some of the other undercard races from Gulfstream today, because it wasn't just the Pegasus World Cup, the Pegasus World Cup Turf. As I mentioned, Eric's not going to be here tonight, but he did put together a list of races, his thoughts on the particular races. So all right, that's interesting. That's good to know. We'll figure that out. Okay, so what Eric has to say about that. So going into the first race from this past week in a listed six, the World of Trouble Turf Sprint, Texas Wedge, he mentioned has finally figured it out, and he wouldn't be surprised if he sees a big race from that horse in Saudi Arabia coming forward in the near future. Also talking about the ladies turf sprint, Jean Elizabeth is a winning machine, and Eric thinks she's going to have a breakout year in 2020. Mean Mary in the La Prevoyante, I probably butchered the pronunciation of that. I do apologize for not knowing how to pronounce some of this. Mean Mary has been a breakthrough. has been a really nice horse in the races before this, and she's going to have a breakthrough in 2020. Talking about the inside information, this is one that I'm just going to do this solo right now. I haven't done a live show in a long time, which I do apologize for not being able to do live shows as often as I was able to during the summer. Once summer comes around, we'll be able to, we'll see if we'll be able to do some more often, live stuff more often. But getting into the inside information, that race featured, not only did it feature Spice Perfection, it also featured a horse, Pink Sands, trained by Shug McGahee. Now, I'm not going to knock Spice Perfection for not running too well in the inside information, but I do want to say Pink Sands is a really, really good runner at Gulfstream, and I could see her, if I was Shug McGahee, and Shug McGahee is a pretty smart horseman. This was a 7 furlong distance race, so it is part of the sprint division. There is a Breeders' Cup Challenge race. Which horse is she? I believe that she's not the Irish bred. So, but there is a Breeders' Cup Challenge race for the filly and mare sprint run at Gulfstream in June. The Princess Rooney handicap, and this is just a horse that excels whenever she runs at Gulfstream. She was 4th in this race last year, but her last start out, the Rampart, she looked very good. And now she won the inside information stakes. I could see, and if I was Shug, I would do this. Keep her down at Gulfstream. You can get that Breeders' Cup filly and mare sprint berth with a win in the Princess Rooney handicap. That's what I would do. I don't know Shug McGahee, but he is a pretty smart horseman, and he's going to do what's best for his horse. He's going to put his horse in the best position to win a race. And, the way that Pink Sands won it, that was a really, really strong stretch run by her. So, and then finally getting into the Pegasus Turf, Eric is a big Peter Miller guy, big into Peter Miller's horses. Really liked Mo Forza going into this. So did Jay Pridman. So those two did not have the best of luck with that. But Joel Rosario did not put, and even Jay Pridman tweeted this. He goes, that's not going to go on Joel Rosario's highlight reel. I'm a person, I really like Joel Rosario. I think he's going to have a breakout next couple of years. I brought up Jerry Bailey in November when we talked about the Eclipse Awards, the first time who we thought really were the best performers throughout the year 2019. You've got Joel Rosario, who's going to be one of those jockeys that's going to go on a run for the next 10, 15 years. He's going to rattle off wins in Triple Crown races, Breeders' Cups, Grade 1s. He's going to bring all those in. Might get a couple of Eclipse Awards in there. But this was not a day to be looking highly on Joel Rosario. He didn't have a good run. Mo Forza, whatever. I mean, his last 4 races were in California. I'm not going to bring up the California thing because I don't want to say that the horse can't win outside of California, but just not a good run by Joel Rosario at all. Magic Wand, I want to mention her. I was really big into Magic Wand. Magic Wand can't do anything except run second, it seems like. She was second to Bricks and Mortar twice last year. Unfortunately, second 2 time in both runnings of the Pegasus Turf. So disappointing for her. I was really hoping she would get a big victory in this, but she didn't ultimately. Great ride by Tyler Gaffleone getting up the rail, though. No one saw Zulu Alpha coming, and that's a nice win for Zulu Alpha. I'm not gonna come on here and say there's gonna be big things from Zulu Alpha, but it's gonna be interesting to see how this male turf division shapes out because there's some older horses. Magic Wand is basically Found, but I don't think you should call her worse than Found. I mean, Found was better result-wise, but I give I'm not that I'm giving Magic Wand a pass, but Magic Wand has been all over the place. She does not duck anyone. She didn't run in the Breeders' Cup, but she's been to Hong Kong, Australia, Dubai, the United States, the United Kingdom. She's been everywhere. So Magic Wand does not duck anyone. She's a really nice horse, and really disappointed that Magic Wand did not get that win there because I thought that was going to be a nice statement win for her and to show people that she's a really, really nice horse, but second best today behind Zulu Alpha. Also worth mentioning, another horse in that race. The two horses in the race had been around for a while. Sadler's Joy and Arklow. They can't do anything. And that's why I have not a lot of faith in this older, and it's going to be interesting to see how this division shapes up. I wouldn't be surprised if you see a 3-year-old come out here and lead this turf division. We've got one. I'm not sure what's going to happen with Structor. I know that some people have said on the Derby Trail, you might find him there. But mentioning Structor, he is a really nice grass horse, and I really hope they don't put him on the turf. That's not something that I've been a really big fan of, is taking turf horses and putting them on the dirt. It happened last year with War of Will. Didn't work out great. I mean, they got the Preakness, so you can't say that it was a failure, but toward the end, the Belmont was a terrible race. The Jim Dandy was a terrible race. No, he didn't run in the house. He ran in Jim Dandy. That was a terrible race. The Pennsylvania Derby, bad race, and the Breeders' Cup Classic, bad race. So his last 4 races after he won the Preakness, you can look at the Louisiana Derby, the Kentucky Derby, the Belmont, the Jim Dandy, the Pennsylvania Derby, the Breeders' Cup Classic. 6 of his last 7 races on the dirt were really bad runs. And, like I've always said, I've never been big into putting the grass horses on the dirt. War of Will's going back to the grass, though. I would hope that they wouldn't put Structor on the dirt, because Structor just looks like a really nice grass horse. But keep an eye on a potential 3-year-old coming in here and ruling this turf division, because the male turf division, older males don't look that good. I mean, Mo Forza right now looks like, of the 3-year-olds, looks the best. Henley's Joy got an upset win in the Belmont Derby. That was about it. No one from the Turf Trinity is really doing that good. Also, it is worth mentioning, Instilled Regard. Eric loves that horse. Instilled Regard ran a great race. Instilled Regard has benefited so much since leaving the Jerry Hollendorfer barn and going to Chad Brown. He got that win in the Fort Lauderdale. Really nice win by him. Got him into the Pegasus turf. Honestly, it's even worse when the European horse when the European horses run on the ground. With a few exceptions, it never. Yeah, I wasn't big into when they put Mendelssohn on the dirt. I always said, put Mendelssohn back on the grass. I mean, you saw that performance he had in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. Now, Mendelssohn didn't have a terrible career on the grass, but hang on a second. Instilled Regard. Yeah, no, Instilled Regard ran a big. He ran 4th at a big price. I think it was 85-1 for Jerry Hollendorfer in that Kentucky Derby. But Instilled Regard, since going to the grass, since getting to Chad Brown, is a really nice horse. So, I think that this would probably be the type of division that there's not a bricks and mortar. I think it's safe to say, unless there's a really, really good 3-year-old, I don't think that there's going to be a really slam dunk standout 3-year-old. There's not a bricks and mortar in this turf division. So I think it's just going to be victories are going to cycle between horses. You'll see a lot of horses split races. I could see Sadler's Joy, Arklow, Annals of Time. Actually, I take that back. Annals of Time got injured last year prior to the Breeders' Cup. Annals of Time is probably going to be the horse that emerges as the really, really solid horse in this division. Didn't run on the Pegasus, but keep an eye out on Annals of Time. I actually take that back. Annals of Time, I'm not saying he's going to be bricks and mortar, but Annals of Time, it looks like is primed for a big 2020. I'm not saying that Mo Forza can't do anything. He'll go back to California and get some good races in there. He'll probably I could see him running in a race like the Shoemaker Mile. He's not necessarily a miler, but I could see him going in the Shoemaker Mile, races like that. What was I going to do, though? I was about to do something, and then I got sidetracked with talking about Instilled Regard. But I'm not sure if this is no. I did notice your new profile. That looks nice. There was something that I wanted to look up, and I can't think of what it was. But I think I'll go back to the point I was making earlier. I'm not a big fan of the running horses on the grass or running horses on the dirt that are grass horses. I always say, grass guys, keep them on the grass. Dirt guys, keep them on the dirt. That's what my view has always been, and that's what my view always will be. Is I like the grass horses. I like my grass horses on the grass, and I like my dirt horses on the dirt. Now, if a horse like World of Trouble can do it consistently, then great. But you know, general World of Trouble is an outlier. Generally, I like my dirt horses and I like my turf horses. I don't like dirt and turf altogether. Or I don't like alternating between dirt and turf. It didn't necessarily benefit Yoshida the best. Catholic Boy, a lot of people have said he was mismanaged. So that is what I have. Roaring Lion should have won the Breeders' Cup Tour. Well, they took a shot at the Breeders' Cup Classic. They took a shot with the Breeders' Cup Classic, and unfortunately, it didn't pay out for them. And unfortunately, Roaring Lion ended up having the issues that he had. You bring up Mucho Gusto. Now is the perfect time to segue into the Pegasus World Cup Dirt. Before we get into talking about Mucho Gusto, which I have a big I told you so with this Mucho Gusto thing right here. Not necessarily because I know a lot of people here liked Mucho Gusto, but I want to pat myself on the back because I saw this coming. Big run by Mucho Gusto today. But before we get into that, I want to just congratulate my friend and friend of the podcast, Dale Romans, getting that big second in the Breeders' Cup, or getting that big second in the Pegasus World Cup turf with Mr. Freeze. Dale's going to have a big year this year. I'm not going to share everything that Dale told me, but Dale's going to have some big races this year. Obviously, we know he's got Dennis's Moment. The Breeders' Cup Juvenile, that was a complete outlier throwaway race. It's unfortunate that Dennis's Moment had two throwaway races last year. His first start, his maiden, and the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, because if he didn't have his maiden race, he could have gotten away with. But if he had broke well in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, there would have been Storm the Court would not have been the 2-year-old champion. That's all I'll tell you. But looking at Mucho Gusto that's all I want to say. That big congratulations, Dale Romans, big horse right there. Mr. Freeze, big second. We'll see more from him going forward. And now I'll get into talking about Mucho Gusto. This was a horse, he didn't run well in the Arkansas Derby, which was his last start prior to this. But before that, third in the Travers, really, really good third behind two horses that were Code of Honor, got votes for the Eclipse Award. Travers winner, Jockey Club Gold Cup winner, Vino Rosso was a better horse in that race. I don't like the disqualification in that race at all, but Jockey Club Gold Cup winner, but I don't want to take anything away from Code of Honor's Travers. That was a really, really good run by there. And Tacitus is a horse that once he finally gets his head on him, Tacitus will be really hard to beat going forward. But Tappets always don't have a great head on their shoulder. But Mucho Gusto was third in that. And then prior to that, Maximum Security, he pushed Maximum Security right to the end in that. And then before that, he had two grade 3 wins, the Affirmed and the Las Barrera. And then prior to that, he should have gotten into the Kentucky Derby. Crappy ride in the Sunland Derby by Joe Talmo. I would have fired Joe Talmo off that race. Now, the one thing I do want to mention before we get into, I'll address your point in a minute. Before we get into that, what a move, what a pick by Irad Ortiz to, that's the bold thing to do, to walk away from a Breeders' Cup winner, spun to run. Now, it begs the question with spun to run ultimately scratching. That's probably why Irad took off, is because he knew the horse had the skin issue. And if they didn't scratch him, wouldn't have run very well. Now, I think that he's not going to ride spun to run again. I don't think that's going to bother Irad Ortiz too much. But that was a bold move to walk away from a Breeders' Cup winner and take a mount on a horse that for a while, for a good part of the spring, people thought of as Bob Baffert's fourth string Derby horse behind Game Winner, Improbable, and Roadster. Improbable and Roadster have since done absolutely nothing. And game winner horribly had 2 tough luck seconds, horribly wide in the Kentucky Derby. Kentucky Derby, a complete throwaway for him, and had the Los Alamitos Derby, and then was scratched prior to the or was not scratched, but was not able to make the trip out to Saratoga for the Travers. Has yet to run since. No plans yet on when his next start will be. I could see something like a Santa Anita handicap maybe for him. That's just speculating. I don't have any information on that. But Mucho Gusto. He's going to the Saudi Cup now. Big run by him. He's a really nice horse. And, you could see a progression from him. He strikes me as a type of gun runner horse. I'm not saying he's going to be gun runner, but gun runner didn't have some. Actually, I'm going to pull up Gun Runner's Equibase page right now. And while I'm getting his Equibase page pulled up, I'll talk about your Triple Crown idea with the Pegasus, Saudi, and Dubai World Cup. That's never going to happen. I'll say about the Pegasus World Cup, I hope it lasts, but this was not. I mean, Mucho Gusto. If Mucho Gusto turns into something, then that's not an accurate representation of what we thought this race was going to be prior to that, because Mucho Gusto would be the only superstar from that race. This is a glorified Grade 2, and I don't want to knock any of the horses in this race. It was a glorified Grade 2 race. The purse drop, no one is going to want to run in the Pegasus World Cup. No one is going to want to run in the Pegasus World Cup and then ship out to Saudi Arabia. Now, the only reason they did that with Mucho Gusto. None of the real big guys are going to do it. Bob Baffert didn't do it with McKinsey. He didn't do it with his other horses. Mucho Gusto, I'm not going to say he can't get a mile and a quarter. His sire, Mucho Macho Man, won the Breeders' Cup Classic, so there's obviously classic pedigree there. So to say that he can't, you can't say that with certainty. But looking at Mucho Gusto, he strikes me as a gun runner type horse. Gun runner was third in the Kentucky Derby, but had some real had a head-scratching performance in the Travers, but was third, in the Haskell. He was fifth of 6 horses, but then he was third in the Travers, second in the Pennsylvania Derby, second of Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, and then he started to rattle off Grade 1 win Clark Handicap, won the Razorback, then went to Dubai and ran second behind Arrogate, and then won the Stephen Foster, Whitney, Woodward, Breeders' Cup Classic, and the Pegasus to close out his career. Mucho Gusto, he is the highest earning son of Mucho Macho Man every year he's ran. Well, yeah, because Mucho Macho Man has not been a sire for that long. So that's not surprising. Because Mucho Macho Man, his horses have really only started making the track the past couple of years. So that's definitely not surprising to me at all. But the pedigree is there for Mucho Gusto. Mucho Macho Man could get a mile and a quarter. The pedigree is there. Macho Uno, not necessarily saying Macho Uno, but you look back in his pedigree, Mucho Macho Man, Breeders' Cup Classic winner. Holy Bull didn't run well in the Kentucky Derby, but he won the Haskell, the Travers, the Woodward. I believe that was still when the Woodward was a mile and a quarter. So, when was the Woodward last run at a mile and a quarter? I think nope. The Woodward was only running a mile and a quarter for 2 years, but yeah, Gun Runner's 2 worst races were on sloppy tracks. So I mean, there's the indication right there. But Gun Runner was a phenomenal horse, and Mucho Gusto. Not saying that he's going to do what Gun Runner did. I'm not saying he is, and I'm not saying he isn't, but getting back to Mucho Gusto, your question with that, his pedigree, Holy Bull could win in a mile and a quarter. Macho Uno won a couple of races at a mile and an eighth, the Pennsylvania Derby and the Massachusetts Handicap. And then Mucho Macho Man, Breeders' Cup Classic winner. Awesome again winner, mile and an eighth. So yes, I do think he can get a mile and a quarter. Obviously, he can get a mile and an eighth. And in 2020, the only horse to win over 1 mil. Well, you really can't make the indication for that because we're 25 days into 2020. So, but your point, Mucho Macho Man has not been siring horses for that long. That's not anything. That's a different notification. Mucho Macho Man has not been sire for that long, so it's understandable why he doesn't have the grade 1 winners that you would necessarily expect. And I need to grab my water. Hold on a second. All right, sorry about that. I've been talking for 45 minutes without water. But Mucho Gusto, he's going to go to the Saudi Cup. But back to your point, the Pegasus, the Dubai World Cup, and the Saudi Cup. I mean, the Saudi and Dubai World Cups are probably going to be not necessarily a series, but it's going to be something that trainers are going to do. They'll go to Saudi Arabia, run there. I'm not going to say the Pegasus is going to fizzle out. I could see the Pegasus sticking around, and there will be people who will run. I can see an Omaha Beach type horse that the owners just want to get one more race out of them, and they don't want to go halfway across the world. So I think there is still a market for the Pegasus World Cup. And let's not forget, the Pegasus World Cup is still the third richest race in the United States. It's not the $9 and $7 million that it used to be, but let's not be ridiculous here. $3 million. There's not that many races that are $3 million. Only two races that are higher in earnings than the Pegasus World Cup are the Breeders' Cup Classic and Breeders' Cup Turf. The Travers was the Travers was not an okay run for Mucho Gusto. The Travers was a really good run for Mucho Gusto. Don't get me wrong. It's horse racing is not like any other sport. I always hear the joke, second in third. Second is just first loser. That was a really, really solid run by, well, it not being the richest race in the United States definitely does hurt it, but it's not going to kill the race. I have gone back and forth on that, and my final verdict on it will be is it's not going to kill it. It's not great, but it's not going to kill the race. Yeah, it's going to keep its grade. It's going to keep its grade 1. It's still a $3 million rate. That's the one thing that a lot of people have been kind of overreacted a little bit to the purse dropping. Now, it's not necessarily great that American horses are not running there, but let's be completely honest. This is still a $3 million race. This is still a $3 million race. So it's going to still be a grade 1 race. Still $3 million, third richest race in the United States. People will still run in this race, and there's a market for it. There's the type of horses like Omaha Beach. Now, unfortunately, the whole Omaha Beach situation, a star-crossed horse, but there's still that market. I could see a horse like, let's just throw something out there, like even an American Pharaoh type horse, a Triple Crown winner that does run a full year. The Pegasus is run at the perfect time where you can run the horse there and still get him to the breeding shed. City of Light and Accelerate were able to do it, and I could see it. There's a market for it, and it's $3 million. It's not like it's a $500,000 grade 1 race. Fields aren't going to be as strong as you would hope they would be, but to say that the race is going to go down is no. It's not going to go down. The Travers by Mucho Gusto, though, was a really nice run. People who a lot of people don't realize how great some horses run, even while running second and third. That's something that you got to remember, is that just because. Yeah, the grade 1 demotions this year were not that good. I'll get into those if you want me to. Yeah, it was the most wide open race in Pegasus history. And, we're going to have to get used to this. We're going to have to get used to having, the second call horses running. But, it is what it is. Let's get into these grade 1 downgrades. The Vosburg, you can't downgrade that race. You cannot downgrade the Vosburg. Imperial Hint and Firenze Fire had a really good Vosburg this year. It's a grade 1 race, a Breeders' Cup win in your in race. It makes absolutely no sense. And then the Santa Anita Oaks, someone chronicled a list of the winners that have come from that race. I'll go back to it. I'll go back to the Santa Anita Oaks. I don't know how you did. I don't know how you downgraded this. And Santa Anita has enough problems already. And that's just kicking them while they're down. So the grade 1 downgrades do not help at all. These are the horses that have won the Santa Anita Oaks the last 6 years. Bellafina, multiple grade 1 winner. Actually, no. Bellafina, multiple grade 1 winner. Midnight Bisou, horse of the year, got horse of the year votes. Paradise Woods, grade 1 winner. Songbird, grade 1 winner. Fantastic 3-year-old filly, will be a Hall of Famer. Stellar Wind, grade 1 winner. Beholder, grade 1 winner. Horse of the year finalist, will get into the Hall of Fame. Not will get Hall of Fame votes. Will get into the Hall of Fame. So yeah, you cannot downgrade that race. Yeah, Omaha Beach could be a great sire. At this point, though, I would be very cautious about breeding to Omaha Beach, because I don't love all the issues that he's had. But he's going to be he could be a Danzig type horse. Danzig was plagued with soundness issues his entire career, and look at what he turned into as a sire. So, yep. I'm not going to say he's not going to be a great sire. I would be hesitant to breed to him at this point, but he's not going to have a top dollar breeding or top dollar price. So you could definitely get him at a discount if you want to call it that. And then, yeah, the Santa Anita Sprint Championship, that definitely does not help. So not a fan of the grade 1 downgrades at all. There was no grade 1 upgrades. I would have upgraded the Oaklawn Handicap. That race deserves to be upgraded. Excuse me. But yeah, so Mastery. Yeah, Mastery's first crop is coming this year. I will tell you, Mastery is a horse that would have been insane if he did not get injured. Mastery would have been, I don't like to throw out, excuse me, I gotta move this further back. I don't like to throw out that X horse would have been a Triple Crown winner, but Mastery would have been at least a Kentucky Derby winner. Always Dreaming would not have wanted any part of running against Mastery in the 2009 or 2017 Kentucky Derby, and Mastery is going to have some really, really good. No, the Malibu. There will be races that will go before the Malibu and the La Brea. The race that I think is going to go next is the American Oaks, but I could see them getting downgraded. But there will be races that will go before the Malibu and the La Brea. Maybe the La Brea and the American Oaks go, but I don't think they would disqualify the Malibu. And then, wow, that's actually... All right, someone needs to fix this Wikipedia page because they list Gary Stevens as only having 4 Santa Anita Oaks winners, and he's got 5. So I might have to go fix that after this because that's not a correct statistic. But yeah, so the Santa Anita Oaks has had a bunch of great horses come through it. Makes absolutely no sense. Doesn't do anything to help California racing. I think it's a very bad thing to do, especially with all the struggles that California's had with field sizes and everything. That definitely does not help them. But if anyone, I'll open it up right now to questions about the Kentucky Derby Trail. Right now, obviously, I'm open to talk about the Kentucky Derby. I think that the Wood and the Bluegrass need to be grade 1s again, too. Yeah, the reason that those races haven't been grade 1s is because the Wood hasn't produced a Kentucky Derby winner if it doesn't produce one this year, it's going to be 20 years. And the Bluegrass has not produced a grade 1 winner, or has not produced a Kentucky Derby winner since Strike the Gold. And the reason they downgraded the Bluegrass is because Keeneland had the synthetic track, and they went to synthetics, and that didn't necessarily bode well for the horses that ran on the synthetics there. So, I wouldn't disagree with you on that. Those races aren't the ones I care about the most, but I'm not going to disagree with you there. But the real elite Derby prep races now are the Florida Derby, the Arkansas Derby, and the Santa Anita Derby. And the Louisiana Derby produces horses that run something in the Kentucky Derby. Country House came out of the Louisiana Derby. He also came out of the Arkansas Derby. So first horse, mind you, to go through 2. I think first horse to go through 2 of the Derbies in the point system, in the history of the point system. But I'll open it up to, speaking of the Kentucky Derby, I'll open it up to questions about the Derby Trail. Again, it's a little too early, at least in my eyes, to start saying certain horses are going to be Kentucky Derby winners. But I'll open it up to any questions that anyone might have about the Kentucky Derby Trail. What horses I think right now are the really good ones and who I think is going to do well. I feel like we have some ungraded grade 1 races we need some ungraded. I don't want grade 1 races to shrink year after year. Well, I don't want to say that they're going to shrink, but you know, they'll even it out because they'll downgrade races and then they'll upgrade other races. Like, I'm trying to think of a race that I could see getting upgraded. But yeah, so again, I'll open up to questions about the Derby Trail right now. And anyone has anything that they want to know about a particular horse on the trail, what I think of it, and you know, just anything about this year, how I think certain divisions are going to play out. Again, I already said I think Annals of Time is going to be the big horse in the turf division this year or coming up. Oh, and one other thing to bring up is that Higher Power did not run well at all today. Not a good race for him. Really, really poor performance for him. I knew this horse was going to come up. Do you see Bob Baffert's horse? I did see his first race. I've heard a lot of people compare him to Justify. My people have actually told me, we always say that this horse, we always say with whatever Baffert horse, this horse is the next insert whatever great horse that Baffert trained. But I've heard some people saying, some people that are close to the horse at least, saying that this is the real deal. So I like I always said, I don't like to make big predictions about horses in January, and this is a maiden race. This isn't a stakes race. His other horse, Authentic, that people were freaking out about a couple weeks ago, that was in a grade 3. This is in a maiden race, so we'll see where Nadal goes from here. We could see him. We'll either see him in Southern California or down in Arkansas. That's one of the two places where Baffert takes his horses. He's probably going to run Nadal in one place and Authentic in the other place. Those are the two horses that he probably thinks has his best. Don't forget about 8 Rings, though. And 8 Rings is 8 Rings and 1,000 Words were his two horses from their 2-year-old years that people were going crazy about. And those horses have not been running. And now the shiny new toys are Nadal and Authentic. But yeah, so I did see it. I'm not ready to crown him a Triple Crown winner just yet, but it is worth mentioning that Nadal, nice maiden winner. It'll be interesting to see what he does on the Derby Trail. But I want to see the horses come back. I want to see Dennis's Moment come back. I want to see all the horses that we knew last year were going to be great, so that we can better evaluate what's going to happen with everything. Looking into some of the other divisions that I can think about off the top of my head, we already talked about the male and female grass divisions. Sprint division is going to be very interesting. Imperial Hint is going to come back again. Imperial Hint cannot run at 7 furlongs, but does really well at 6 furlong races, and that's what the Breeders' Cup is. So Imperial Hint, I think, is going to try to vie for that elusive Breeders' Cup championship. Not necessarily saying he'll get it. He is an older horse, but he's going to try to go for it. You've also got Chancelot, who's a really nice horse. He ran some he had some really tough luck seconds behind horses like Mind Control, who won his most recent start out. Mind Control is going to springboard and have a nice year as a nice older horse. You also, like I mentioned, you also have Chancelot. No more Matoli. That's disappointing, but that clears it up for some other horses. Firenze Fire could start to do some things, as well as you could see some runs from some other sprinters that come out of the docket. I'm trying to think if there's any other notable sprinters that I can think of. One weird idea is that maybe the Don handicap will come back, and I could see the Don handicap coming back if the Pegasus really starts to go downhill. If the Pegasus goes downhill, Don handicap could very easily come back, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think the Pegasus will, the quality of the horses running the Pegasus will decrease, but I don't think it's going to go away because I think the Stronach Group, Gulfstream, ever since they had the renovations, do not get the Breeders' Cup anymore. So this is their big event at Gulfstream. So I don't think they're going to get rid of it and just say, all right, we'll just go back to having the regular $500,000 Grade 1 race. When you can have $2 million plus, when you can have a $3 million and $1 million Grade 1 race and market it as one of the best days on the racing calendar and get all kinds of people out to your track, even if it's $3 million, they'll still keep it. I'm hoping at some point maybe they'll be able to increase the purse up to $5 and $3 million. Not going to guarantee that that'll happen, but I would hope that maybe in the future they could maybe get to have something like that. But this is Gulfstream's big event. Breeders' Cup will not be coming to Gulfstream anytime soon unless major things change. So this is Gulfstream's event. But the Don handicap will not come back. That is one thing that I will tell you. Don handicap will not come back. So yeah, I don't really think there's any. Let me go back and think if there's any other Eclipse Awards that I really felt strongly about. Because I did start talking about those a little bit at the top of the show, and then we started getting into Hall of Fame stuff and other things. But yeah, so do you think a filly could make the Derby? Well, I know that that's interesting that you bring that up. I would love to see a filly make the Kentucky Derby this year, since it has to race 3 years in a row for ungraded on the bright side. Yeah, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint will be a Grade 1. Let me just go through. I already made the point about Matoli, everything. So yeah, there wasn't really anything from the Eclipse Awards. I'll get into your filly point, but there wasn't really anything else from the Eclipse Awards. I do want to mention, very happy that Brixton Mortar was a unanimous male turf winner. Rightfully so. Undefeated Breeders' Cup champion. Not really much more than you can ask there. But I think a filly could make the Derby. I know is we had Hidden Scroll on the Derby Trail last year, and the owner, Prince Khalid Abdul of Saudi Arabia, owns Juddmonte. He's old. He's an older man, and he really wants to get the Kentucky Derby, and that's why they kind of, I don't want to say rushed Bricks and Mortar to the Derby Trail, not Bricks and Mortar. Why they rushed Hidden Scroll to the Derby Trail? I mean, he won his maiden race by 14.5 lengths. There was really no other place you could go aside from just jumping right on into the Kentucky Derby Trail. But Khalid wants a Kentucky Derby, and if a filly, which I don't think he has a really strong male horse. I haven't seen a really good 2-year-old Juddmonte horse. So if a filly is Prince Khalid's best chance, and it's in their best interest to try to run her on the Kentucky Derby Trail, he's going to do it. British Idiom, I'm not sure that British Idiom would run a points race, but I know Brad Cox hinted at a possibility of Taraz running in the Kentucky Derby. As recently as 2018, we had a filly win a points race on the Breeders' Cup Trail that was paved in the El Camino Real Derby. She was a grass horse, though, and the El Camino Real Derby was on the synthetic. So paved did not ultimately get to the Kentucky Derby. Now, we could also see, I know Godolphin had Divine Image last year in the UAE Derby. She was a favorite. She performed really poorly in the UAE Derby, but we've seen fillies run second in the UAE Derby before, and I could see a filly coming out of Dubai, possibly and running in the Kentucky Derby, as well as you mentioned, the possibility with Taraz. British Idiom, not really sure that they would run her, but it would be great to see. But I'll open it up to any final questions that anyone has about anything. There wasn't really anything else that I had left on my agenda that I wanted to get to. Stuff that's coming up forward within the next couple of weeks. We will have 2011 Belmont Stakes winning trainer Kelly Breen on the show. He will complete the final guest that we have planned for that we had planned in the string of people that we got: Kelly Breen, Dale Romans, Joe Bravo, Kenny McPeak, and finally Kelly Breen. We're going to have more guests going forward. I do also want to mention stuff that we're going to be at some tracks this year. I will be at the Group 1 Irish Derby this year. Excuse me, at the end of June. So that is something that we'll be doing. We'll be going across the pond. Podcast will be there. Working on some other stuff. I'm not going to spoil what I'm working on because I don't want to disappoint people if it doesn't happen, but we're working on stuff. That's going to happen whenever it happens. I don't have a date for that. We really have to figure that out. That's happening. That's going to happen when it happens. I'll let you know when it happens. I'm not even going to announce when we're going to do the date. That's going to be the case of, it's just going to be, there's a day where we'll wake up and it'll happen. We'll say, we'll have it like one day. It'll be like, yeah, we can do the interview today and we'll do it then. It's going to happen. It's just going to happen. It's just going to have to wait on that. But that will be the case of, it will happen. It will be a short notice thing. Yeah. That is really it for my stuff for tonight. Again, I'll open it up to any last minute points that anyone wants to bring up. I don't have anything else really that is really pressing matters to get on the show right now. But, oops, I popped out my watch band, so I got to get that back in. But yeah, I'll leave it open for the next minute or so if anyone has any last minute questions about anything. Hall of Fame, Kentucky Derby, Eclipse Awards, potential other stuff going forward, Grade 1 races in the next couple of weeks. Any of that stuff. If you have anything, another minute or so, if you have that, drop it in right at the end. And then we'll call it a night and we'll get into... And I'll be sure to get the interviews that we've done. I'll get Joe Bravo and I'll get Dale Romans on YouTube. I'll get Kenny McPeak too. So those three I owe to YouTube. Dale Romans is up on the podcasting platforms though. So if you want to go listen to that one, you can listen to it there. Thanks. I appreciate that. Pegasus video pushed us over. I really appreciate Privman being able to take time out of his day on Thursday. Really crazy day. I was going to have a Pegasus Turf preview. That went out the window when Privman had to come on and we had to do a Pegasus Dirt stuff with that. Yes, he did not finish second in Horse of the Year. Matoli got 19 votes for Horse of the Year. Maximum Security got 14 votes for Horse of the Year. I'll get you the Horse of the Year votes just for the record. But no, Maximum Security did not finish second. He was third. But it's interesting to say that because Vino Rosso won the Eclipse Award for Older Male Horse, but did not get... I actually got to figure out how many votes he did get for Horse of the Year because I think he only got... how many did he get? I got to find what... I got to find where Jay... So these were the breakdown of the votes. Yeah, Vino Rosso only got one vote, so... Bricks and Mortar 204, Matoli 19, Maximum Security 14, and then 11 for Omaha Beach. Actually, no, never mind. 1 vote for Omaha Beach. I'm sorry, I misread an I as a 1. So 204 for Bricks and Mortar, 19 for Matoli, 14 for Maximum Security, and then Midnight Bisou, Omaha Beach, and Vino Rosso each getting 1 vote. So Matoli did not win the Older Male Eclipse Award, but did finish second to Bricks and Mortar in Horse of the Year votes. We knew that Bricks and Mortar was going to win Horse of the Year. We knew it was not going to be close. It was, our prediction was it was going to be something like Accelerate Justify. It wasn't even as close as that. Accelerate got more votes than even got more votes finishing second than Matoli or Maximum Security did. So, right horse got Horse of the Year. There were no snubs at the Eclipse Awards. I don't think Vino Rosso getting it over Matoli was a snub. Really should have had 3 Grade 1 wins. But Vino Rosso, Breeders' Cup Classic, Jockey Club Gold Cup, and Gold Cup at Santa Anita. 3 really nice runs for him. Could have done better, but I don't dislike the Eclipse Award with Vino Rosso at all. So with all that being said, that's it for my stuff, unless anyone has any last-minute points that they want to bring up about anything, Pegasus, Eclipse, Awards, Kentucky Derby. I'll give you another minute to drop it in, and that will be it. I will say, before I wrap this up, if you have not... Yeah, the Saudi Cup's going to be a huge race. We'll have a lot of Saudi Cup coverage. If you have not subscribed already, go subscribe here on YouTube as well as over on our various podcasting platforms. The links are, if you scroll back up to the top of the chat, you can get the links to the 4 best places to watch it: iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and on Google Play as well. And also go give us a follow over on Twitter at Rundown Racing. And that will be about it, unless there is any last-minute point that any person wants to bring up Saudi Cup within a month and change. So looking forward to that. We'll have wall-to-wall coverage of that with Eric. Some other races to look forward to next week. The San Pasquale will feature some horses. I think it's probably going to feature. Can't think of off the top of my head, but. You're going to see some horses run on the San Pasquale. It will be interesting. So yeah, I'll just leave the chat open for the next 30 seconds or so, just in case there are any last-minute pointers, any final questions on Pegasus World Cup or Eclipse Awards, anything like that. Mucho gusto, ready for a big year. It's going to be interesting to see what goes on in 2020. So I think that is about it for everything tonight. We'll see you next time. And the big cap will sit. Yeah, the big cap's going to be, they're not going to downgrade that. That race is too historical. I saw some people's opinions. They think it should be disqualified, but that race, very similar to the Jockey Club Gold Cup, will never be downgraded. I was saying disqualified. Will never be downgraded because those are historical races. So that will not, and that's the same thing with the Gold Cup. Gold Cup at Santa Anita has been a glorified Grade 2 race. Won't be downgraded because of the history of it. So that is, again, just if anyone has any last-minute pointers, this is the last call. I think that's about it for tonight. We'll catch you next time. We'll see when we're able to have a live stream next. I'm not going to guarantee that we'll be able to have one next week, but we'll see when we're able to do that. All right, that is it, and we'll get you next time.